for my fourth book, I had organized a UK book tour. And I was going to different cities in the UK and I was doing workshops based on the material in the book. And I was lugging a bunch of books along with me to sell after the events. And my first date in the diary was Bristol in the southwest of England. Don't know if we have anyone from the southwest of England with us today. And on the day that I was leaving, my Mac, speaking about Apple, had to do an update. And it did an update, but it got stuck updating itself. And I started to panic and I was like, once it started updating, you can't log back in and use all the programs until it finishes update. And so I got stuck. Now I'm getting closer and closer. I'm like, shit, I've got to get the taxi. I've got to go to the airport. I'm flying down to Bristol. And I'm looking at this map. I'm like, and my Mac has all of my slides for my book tour workshops. I'm going, oh, shit. And so I go, I take my Mac and I close the lid, and that's another bad thing to do. You shouldn't close the lid during an update. So I'm panicking, and I'm in the taxi, and I'm phoning my wife. And I'm going, what am I gonna do? My Mac's not working. It's gone, and I'm getting myself into like such a state. And she says, "Look, David, can you do the workshop without the slides?" I said, "Well, I mean, there's nothing that the audience need to see on there, I guess. I don't have any videos or anything." And she's like, "Do you know the information?" I was like, "Yeah, I know the information." And she said, "Well, this week you can do it without the slides. It's not the end of the world." And I hate agreeing with my wife when she's right. Happens too often. I was like, right, okay. So by the time I'm on the plane, I'm starting to calm down a little bit. I'm like, okay, well, actually, when I do workshops, there's times I go onto the flip chart and I'll do a little exercise on the flip chart. So I've used it before. As long as I've got a flip chart or a whiteboard there, I can basically take what was ever on the slides and I can illustrate it on the flip chart. So the next day, Saturday morning, I wake up in my Airbnb. I go and get a lovely cooked breakfast. It's a chain called the Boston Tea Party. I think it's only in England, or certainly the southwest of England. They do a fantastic breakfast. And after I'd had a big breakfast and I'd slept, I went, okay, I'm feeling a little bit better now. I go to the venue. I've got a good turnout, and I run everything off a flip chart. I run a 3-hour event just on the flip chart. And any diagrams, I draw them out. Any writing I had on the slides, I just write that out on the flip chart. And that day taught me a valuable lesson. It taught me that you don't need the slides. That was the first time I had ever done any kind of speech or presentation with no slides at all. There's times when I'd gone off the slides and I'd done exercises, but to show up and from start to finish not use any slides at all, very first time. And I think I sold about 10 books that day as well. So clearly it was effective in terms of getting the information across to people as well. What a flip chart or a whiteboard allows you to do, and it's something that we haven't been able to do so much in COVID. Now, Zoom does have a whiteboard, and we did use that in one of the sessions, the storytelling session, where I drew out the diagram of the storytelling structure. So Zoom does have a whiteboard, but it's something we haven't really been using during the virtual times. The advantage of a flip chart and whiteboard, your audience are involved in the process. So when you're asking them for information, for example, when I ask you to answer a question and you write it in the chat, instead of writing it in the chat, you write it on the whiteboard. So now what they've said is being inputted into the curriculum that you're teaching them. So in terms of the audience being involved and engaged with what you're doing, that increases a lot more on the flip chart and whiteboard than it does when you're presenting the information on slides. And as much as I begrudge my wife's good advice, maybe I sold more books that day because the audience felt more involved than if I'd shown up with slides. Now, of course, we can't A/B test that. We'll never know. But potentially, that's what happened. That they thought, wow, we did this whole session, we didn't use any slides at all. That's different. That's nice. I felt more involved in the process. So this is the advantage of presenting using this format rather than the slides. What I do nowadays is I do a little bit of a combination of both, where we'll do some things off the slides, and then I'll have the flip chart or the whiteboard there, and I'm going to do at least some of the session using that. And quite often, after learning from that experience, I'll just do a session a cappella, no slides, whether that's just me talking and running exercises, whether that's me writing some stuff on a flip chart or a whiteboard. If you want to have a little bit more involvement and a little bit more engagement with your audience, and if it's a smaller number, larger numbers, it can be a little bit more tricky to get people's input and be putting on the flip chart effectively. For a larger audience where the back of the room can't see what you're putting on the flip chart, that's another issue to think about as well. In a smaller, more intimate environment, you might find that the flip chart or the whiteboard is more effective to rest most of your material on rather than going for the slides instead. What you've just seen there is a snippet of my Amplify online course. Amplify, Spark Your Speeches, helps aspiring speakers to create engaging content and deliver it effectively. It's a step-by-step program that guides you through your speaking journey at your own pace. It's a series of live workshop recordings. So you get to have the interactive experience of being in that live setting, but you get to do it on your own time. No worrying about time zones, schedules, all of that kind of fluff. There's lots of additional learning resources in the course that complement and add to the workshops that you go through. It's a 12-month program, and you can access the course in the first month for a $1 trial. So you get to come into the program, see what it's all about, and see if it's going to be right for you and your speaking development. To access your $1 trial, I've put the link in the description below. If you click that link, go through to our course homepage, and at checkout, enter the code YouTube, that's where you've come from, to get your first month for a $1 trial. Click the link in the description below, and I look forward to seeing you in the course.